all the latest on the SaWGuy podcast, be sure to subscribe and don't forget that bell icon. Welcome to the SaWGuy podcast. As always, y'all know I am Stuntman SaWGuy. I couldn't resist since we are talking about episode 51 on Death Proof. Oh man, this is one of my favorite Tarantino films of all time. And I know everyone's going to be saying, what about Reservoir Dogs? What about Pulp Fiction? Don't get me wrong, those were fucking great for their time, but none of them were a slasher film like this film. So without further ado, let's get this rolling.
Hello, and welcome to the SaWGuy podcast.
I ain't no fucking clown.
That is better.
Now clear your minds. He knows what scares you.
I'm just gonna bash your brains.
What the hell? The boogeyman is real, and you found him. What do you want?
I want to hear you scream.
In hell, everybody loves popcorn.
Death Proof will always be one of my favorite Tarantino films of all time. The main reason why I think it's still going to be always my favorite is because, one, it's a horror film, and two, it was so fresh, so different, so outside the box thinking on horror films. You know, we live in a day and age now where if horror films come out, either they're based on something, you know, something big like More Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, you know, or they're actual remakes. Back in 2007, that trend was still going on with just a lot of horror remakes and stuff like that, because he had a few big remakes that came out that year. But what I thought was interesting is that he wanted to do something different with it, and he did, and it was just so fucking awesome how he did it, you know? This film was released actually back in April of 2007, and it was, you know, released coincidentally at the same time with Planet Terror. The reason why they did that is because they did it as a grindhouse feature, right? Which I thought was pretty cool. You know, you pay for one movie, but then you get to see two movies, right? It was a wink at the classic grindhouse features, right? And it was pretty cool how they did that, because the first film you would see would be Planet Terror. Then you would go through all the credits, you see all these skits in between with people that wanted to work with Tarantino, and then you would start Death Proof. But the thing is, just it never did too well, because you got two movies put together with all this stuff in it. It was like a 5-hour movie. You know, talking to people that went to go see it, they saw Planet Terror, they left. They didn't know anything about Death Proof at the end of it. And I was like, what? You know, how the hell did you miss out on this? So, you know, Death Proof really didn't get the attention that it deserved until it was released in DVD. And it was released in DVD of September of 2007, right? Your main character in Death Proof is obviously Kurt Russell. I mean, Stuntman Mac. You know, what's cool about Kurt Russell, we all know him as this old school big action star. But what I thought was interesting, he's never played a bad guy, ever. In most of his films, he's never the bad guy. But in this film, he was a bad guy, and man, he was fucking phenomenal at this. You know, he really was, you know. This film also stars some of my other favorite actresses, one of them being Rose McGowan. She was a babe in this film. But she was also in Planet Terror. So I guess you could say she was kind of like the main actress billing between both films when they were promoting Grindhouse. And so it was pretty interesting. Another, you know, big name in there that you see is Mary Elizabeth Winstead. And she was still kind of breaking out at the time. I think Final Destination 3 had came out, but it was so-so. You know, so she was still making a name for herself, so she got to work on this film, which I thought was pretty cool. You know, another name on there was Rosie O'Dawson. She had starred in Men in Black Men in Black 2, and it kind of broke her out a little bit, got her name out there a little bit more, and so it was pretty cool to see her in this film. Another interesting name you'll see is we were introduced to Zoe Bell. Now, for those of you guys that never heard the name Zoe Bell, she used to work with Tarantino on his other films as a stunt coordinator, as a stunt woman, right? She did all the stunt scenes. And what they do in the stunt scenes is that they put the camera behind your back so they look like them, but it's not them, right? He liked her work so much, he said, you know what, I want you to be in this film, I'm going to give you high billing. And she thought it was a joke. And then all of a sudden when she sees her name on the poster, it's like, oh shit. And her acting was great in this film as well. You know, it was pretty interesting. And with Death Proof, what I loved about it too, I mean, how can you not love the fact that it's a slasher film? You got fast old muscle cars that kick ass, which is one of my other favorite hobbies that I like, you know, muscle cars. But then you also have Tarantino that wrote and directed this film, so it has his take all over on it. You know, it was amazing. As I do in every episode, I'm going to break down the film for you. throwing all the little tidbits like I normally do, because this film, it deserves a lot more credit than what it is. You know, whenever you think of Tarantino, everybody always, you know, thinks of the fact that he did Pulp Fiction. You know, he brought back John Travolta from the grave, so to speak. You know, he also did Reservoir Dogs, his first film. You know, and he's done other great films, you know, his more recent one, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But with Death Proof, I love all the little aspects that he put into it, all the little winks, right? So it starts off showing dimension films, troublemaking films of the studios and all that stuff, but it's done in an old school grindhouse fashion, right? And then all of a sudden you start hearing this old school, you know, 1960s theme. I forgot the name of the theme or what it's from, but I know this theme was in a car movie, right? And so it starts playing. And all of a sudden you see this feet, you know, sitting on the dashboard, just kind of moving all around and everything like that. Little side note about the feet. I don't know if Tarantino has a foot fetish or something, but if you watch this film as closely as I did, you know, because I watched this film 15 times this week for this episode, you're going to see every girl who's, you know, shows her feet, she's always got red toenails. So I don't know if that's his little wink out there as a trademark, but we'll see. But anyways, as she has her feet on the dash, and all of a sudden it says Thunderbolt, and then it flashes and it goes to Death Proof. Which I thought was another cool little wink, you know, because I mean, they did that for like the retro grindhouse films. And as that's going on, it shows them driving around town. Then it shows another muscle car that's like driving, but he's driving hella fast, like through the country road. And it's following you, showing you the POV view, right? And as it's doing all that, then you meet another character. Her name is Jungle Julia, or Julia Lukai, I guess I could say, but she's known as Jungle Julia in this film because of the fact that she's a big, well-known DJ, right? It's played by Sidney Poitier. And I know some of you guys are going to say, Sidney Poitier, that's the old man actor. No, this is actually his daughter. He named her the same thing, you know, Sidney Poitier. So I thought it was pretty cool. You know, so it shows her, she's getting out of bed. Shows from the backside, she gets her shirt on, she goes and lays down. Then it shows her little bobblehead and shit moving. And, you know, as the car gets closer, all of a sudden it starts honking. She looks out the window. Then you see the two other girls, which are obviously her friends. One of them starts running up. She goes, "Hey, open up. I gotta take the world's biggest fucking piss." She's like, "Hurry up. We can't be late." You know, so she's running up the stairs and shit. You know she's got to go real bad because she's holding, you know, when you got to go to the bathroom, you got to go. So she's holding it, trying to run up, right? And after that, it shows, you know, throughout the whole process of that, you see the credits. And then it flashes into the city, and it says, City of Austin, Texas, right? Then it shows all three girls in the car, and they're driving, right? So we already know Jungle Julia. You meet the two other girls, right? The blonde one is played by Jordan Ladd, and she plays the character of Shannon. Or Shanna. There's a scene in there where they make fun of the name, but her name is Shanna, right? Then you meet the other girl who had to take the world's biggest fucking piss. Her name is Arlene, right? So they start talking and discussing how their day is going to go about, how they're planning, who's holding weed. And it's like, well, wait a minute, this is fucked up. And like any Tarantino film, he always has a lot of dialogue. And the reason why he has a lot of dialogue is because he builds up character development. You know, he wants you to understand these characters, you know, and he wants you to feel appreciative of them and kind of get to know them a little bit more, right? So as they're talking, they talk about their plans about how they're going to go use Shanna's dad's lake house at Lake LBJ. And they're talking about like, okay, well, we're going to call Lana Frank, you know, one of their other friends. She's going to bring the weed, we'll hang out, you know. And then they start, you know, fucking with Arlene. And it's implied that Arlene, she used to live in Austin, Texas, and she grew up with him, but she moved away and she's back into town. And so they're talking about like, oh, we heard that you hung out with Nate. How did that go? You know? And they start talking about all that and everything. And as they're driving, they would see signs that say Jungle Julia, and they do the Ric Flair thing. Woo! You know? They were doing that because now she's finally getting her name out, right? And so for every billboard, you see it like 2 or 3 times. They're like, woo! Right? They start talking about everything. Then finally they decided on their plans where they were going to go. They were going to go to this Mexican restaurant called Guerrero's, which I looked up. It's a real fucking restaurant in Austin, Texas, which is pretty cool. So, I mean, that's on my bucket list to check out for you guys. But anyways, they see one more sign. They're all like, okay, it's the last time before we hit Guerrero's. Let's do it. They're all like, no. And she's like, bullshit. We said every damn time. Okay. Woo! So it shows that they passed by. Then you see the 1970s black Chevy Nova, like an old school muscle car, you know. It's all primered out, flat black paint, and then you can hear the exhaust following, right? And then when they get there to the restaurant, Arlene's like, okay, you guys go in. I'm going to have a smoke, right? So she's having a smoke, and what I thought was kind of cool little wink, if you turn it up, the volume, you can hear they're playing the music, baby, it's you. And you hear that later on in the scenes. But, you know, when she's smoking and you hear that song, you see that same car pull up and then it stops, stares at her, and then he burns rubber and fucking peels out. Then they go inside the restaurant and they start, talking and everything like that, right? And then as they're talking, they meet another friend of theirs. Her name's Marcy. And they're like, hey, come join us. And she's like, well, only real quick because I'm here with other people. And then as she goes and sits down, she's looking at Arlene. She goes, oh, you must be the infamous butterfly. And everyone's, Jungle Julia and Shanna, they're all like, she don't know any shit about that. They're all like, what are you going to tell her, right? Arlene's like, what'd you say about me on the radio? She's like, well, I said a little something on the radio that if you do something, they have to do something. And she's like, well, how come you're not telling me about it? She's, and Julia replied, and she basically said, you know what? How about this? I'll have Marcy act it out because she's a phenomenal actress versus me telling you, right? So they kind of act it all out. And, she comes in, she has that Texan accent. Hey, nice to meet you. My name is Barry. Can I buy you a drink, butterfly?
Oh, me hot.
And as they're talking, she starts fucking with her and saying, oh, yeah, I like Jungle Julia's ass, Julia, she was just like, what the hell are you doing? And she's like, oh, look who wants to get to the fucking point, right? So they finish acting it out, right? And then Julia basically tells her, okay, look, so I said on the radio that if you see us hanging out and you see my friend Arlene, we call her Butterfly. You buy Butterfly a drink and you recite this poem. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, and I have miles to go before I sleep. Did you hear me, Butterfly? Miles to go before I sleep. And then you gotta give him a lap dance.
What?
She's like, I ain't giving him shit,
Butterfly, buy a drink,
and I thought that was pretty cool how they did that because, we all had friends over there that fucks with us, right? And so she's, basically, she was looking out for her. She says, look, if some geek tries to come up there and do that to you, you already broke it off. But if some kind of cute, kind of hot, kind of sexy, kind of funny looking, but not hysterically funny looking guy who you could fuck comes up, well, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. So she was looking out for her. So I was like, oh, okay, I can see where this is going, right? And then it shows that it's already dark. They're coming out of the Guero's restaurant, and they're all fucked up, you stupid bitch, And then it shows the same car just sitting there laughing, right? And then it finally shows the person driving the car and ends up being Kurt Russell. And it's like, oh shit, what the hell does Kurt Russell have to do with these chicks, right? So he looks down and is flapping his mirror. He puts in some eye drops. Then it shows that they go to another place called the Texas Chili Parlor, which is another place out there in Texas. So I gotta check out that place too. It looks pretty cool. But anyways, it shows that they go over there, shows the building and everything, and it's just a great fucking shot. Tarantino, he's so great with his cinematography, just like full round shot of it, right? And so anyways, it shows that, Julia, she's dancing, and then you see that Arlene's dancing with the dude she was talking about, Nate, and, they're playing the song, Baby, It's You, which I thought, whoa, okay, wait a minute. Tarantino threw in a wink there on purpose on something, right? And so it shows that, they finally meet up with all the dudes and everything. They're hanging out at the bar and stuff like that. And then what I thought was pretty cool is that there's a cameo role of Eli Roth. Eli Roth, most of us horror fans know, but for some of you guys that don't know, Eli Roth was the guy that created Hostel. And, he's in there and he's trying to get at Shanna. So he's looking at her and he's talking to her and he's like, so is it Shauna and the girls at the lake? And then, Shanna looks at him and she goes, Shauna? And he goes, oh, fuck, hold on. She's like, two things. One, all of us girls named Shanna, we hate when we're called Shauna. And we really hate it when they use the word Shauna. So that's why I kind of fucked up when I said Shannon, Shanna, It's, to me, I would fuck up too. it's common mistake, right? So anyways, it shows that they're, doing all that and everything. And then, they start talking and more dialogue, it's Tarantino, right? So then all of a sudden, then you see that Julia, she goes to the side and she starts texting. And it's implied that she's texting this dude who's a famous director because she wants to get to know him. She actually has a crush on him, right? And then the film kind of slows down. And what's crazy is that this was before iPhones were made. So, some of you guys remember, some of you guys don't. But with those old school Nokia brick phones, you had to fucking type the button 4 times to get a letter that you want. So it was kind of a long scene. She's trying to get to it, right? And say, oh, I can't wait to see you. I'll see you soon. She goes back into the group and everything. They're all hanging out. And then all of a sudden the waitress comes in and says, okay, Warren says it's shot time. And Arlene's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Well, it's Warren's rules, baby. Those are the rules. You know, Warren says we do it. And Warren is actually played by Quentin Tarantino of all things, which I thought was like, oh shit, this is cool, right? So he comes in, he sits down, he goes, I love that idea. Warren says it, we do it, so let's do it. They're pouring all the fucking drinks out. Everyone's asking, you know, what is this? He's like, shots first, questions later, toast time. And they're all taking the shot. And they're all like, ugh, the fuck is that? And then he goes, chartreuse. The only liquor so good they named a color after it. You know, classic Tarantino. I love his acting too, man. The guy's fucking amazing. So anyway, she's like, you know, you see Arlene, she's like, ugh. You know, I don't want another shot. I'm going to go outside, have a smoke. Then you hear him say, all right, be careful with that hot flame. Don't burn down the joint. So she goes out there. She starts having a cigarette. She sees this black car in the dark, right? Because all the parking lot lights are on except for one. And all of a sudden you see Quentin Tarantino, his character. He was like, hey, Punky, one of the lights in the parking lot is off. Flip it. So she flips the light, right? The light comes on. Right on, you know, Kurt Russell's nice black 1970s Chevy Nova, right? And all of a sudden she's like creeped out looking at it like, what the fuck, is this guy following us, right? So it builds up the horror aspect of this. And then all of a sudden she gets scared by Nate, the dude that's trying to get at her. And then, you know, they start talking and everything. And it's raining like hell out there. And so he's like, hey, I want to make out. He's being whiny. She's like, okay, I'm done with this whining shit. And he's like, no. We go make out in my car. And it'd be like a couple minutes. She goes, all right, I'm going to tell you the rules right now. It's going to be 5 minutes. When I pull the plug, you shut the fuck up or no more. Because we go right inside in the fucking bar. He's like, nope, when you say you're done, we're done. She's like, all right. They start walking, you know, off the porch. And all of a sudden, you know, he pulls out the umbrella and she goes, wait a minute. You got two things. One, kiss good. And two, don't let my hair get wet. Okay? So, I mean, they built her up as, you know, this tough character, which I thought was really cool. And all of a sudden, now it's back into the bar scene, right? Then you see Kurt Russell. He sees this big-ass nacho plate, and then he's eating it. They're playing the song Staggerly. And, you know, the nachos look fucking great, but the fact that Kurt Russell's eating it, and he's just breathing all heavy and shit, and he's just stuffing this shit in there. I don't know if that was actually Kurt Russell eating, or he was in character with it as Stuntman Mike, but it was kind of crazy. He's just stuffing it in there, and he got fucking sour cream all over his fucking face. So it shows he wipes off the napkin. Then it shows Eli Roth and the other dude. They're, you know, they're asking the ladies, like, hey, what kind of drink you want? Long Island iced tea? Okay, so they go up there, and they start discussing. They're like, okay, they're gonna go to the lake house. There's no dudes allowed, right? So what we're gonna fucking order Jaeger shots. And the other dude's laughing. They're not gonna go for Jaeger shots. They know they're gonna get drunk. And he goes, we'll be very convincing. And then we keep doing another shot. And another shot. That might be the shot that puts them past the point of fuck it, you know? And then the other guy, the light bulb starts going on. And he's like, okay, so no guys at the lake house end up being guys at the lake house. My point exactly. They see Stuntman Mike. And then they're basically like, who the hell? This guy fell off his time machine over here. They start fucking with him, right? They get their drinks, they go back. And by that time, you see, you know, Stuntman Mike, he turns around, right? Or Kurt Russell. You don't know his name is Stuntman Mike until like a few minutes later. He turns around, then all of a sudden Arlene comes in with Nate. They're talking like, oh, what are you guys doing outside? Oh, he helped me get something out of my car. And then, you know, Julia's like, good for you, Nate. And then they start talking about the character Pam, which is played by Rose McGowan. Ooh, man, she was a babe. I'm gonna keep saying it, she was a babe. I freaking like it when, you know, she's never really played a blonde character much other than in Scream. But it was just that aspect, like Tarantino did so great on the way how she looked as a character. You know, she looked sweet, she looked innocent. And, you know, they start talking about her. And apparently she had a date who bailed on her, left her there. And so she's sitting at the bar, and so she's saying, hey, Warren, anyone you could vouch to give me a ride home? And then you see these keys slide through the bar. And then you finally meet Kurt Russell's character, and he's like, madam, your chariot awaits. You know, and then they start talking like, oh, you gonna be able to drive? He goes, but I've been drinking club soda all night, and I'm building up to my big drink. And she goes, what's that? Virgin Pina Colada. You know, just Kurt Russell's fucking amazing in this. And then she starts asking, why would a guy like you come over here at a bar and not drink? And he goes, well, a bar offers all kinds of things, you know? And she goes like, what? And then he basically says, well, women. Not Joe Grande platters. Fellowship of crazy individuals like Warren over here. He goes, alcohol is just a lubricant for all the bar offers. She goes, ooh, is that cowboy talk? And he got pissed because he turned around. He goes, I'm not a cowboy, Pam. I'm a stuntman. But it's easy to make that mistake, right? She goes, how do you know my name? And he goes, well, can't help it over here. And she goes, okay, so you got a name, Icy? Because he's wearing a jacket that says Icy Hot. He looks at her, and it's one of the most iconic scenes of the film. Stuntman Mike. You know, and then that's when the chicks, they all order drinks and shit like that. And then it shows that they have a little bit more dialogue between, you know, Pam and Stuntman Mike. And then you see the dialogue between the girls and shit. And then eventually, you know, Pam doesn't believe it, so she's like, really? So she asks more, and you're like, what's his name? Stuntman Mac. Well, who is he? Who the hell is this guy? He goes, I don't know, Stuntman. You know, and the cool thing about this whole scene at the Texas Chili Parlor was that, you know, Tarantino, he played some fucking phenomenal music in this. You know, Tarantino, his taste in music is always great. Always, you know. But anyways, it shows that they go outside, they start smoking weed and everything, having cigarettes. Stuntman Mike goes out there, he starts smoking. He starts introducing himself to Julia and the gang. And he plays the dumb card because at this point, you know he knows something, but he's playing the part, right? He meets them and everything, they're smoking weed, and he's like, no, I don't need, no, sorry. You know, he wasn't trying to inhale weed. But you don't know why, right? So he goes back into the bar, and then, you know, he starts talking to Pam, and Pam's like, well, I guess you're gonna have to vouch for being a stuntman, because nobody has a fucking clue what you've done. So Tarantino's like, yeah, he showed me this clip of a scene where he's on a horse and falls off, says it's him, I don't know. And then so he starts talking about, you know, all the shows that he was a stuntman for. You know, Gavilan and all that. And they're actual real shows, you know, and I looked it up. I was like, it's gotta be fake. And I looked it up. I was like, oh shit, they're real, right? So anyways, they start talking, and then she says, well, how do you get into, you know, being a stuntman? He goes the same way, you know, everybody does, through their family. Well, who got you in? My brother, Stuntman Bob. You know, and then they start, you know, all conversating. It's towards the end of the night. All the girls, they're all, you know, at this point, they're all fucking lit, right? They're all outside drinking, smoking. And it shows Arlene talking to Julia. And she's like, okay, I'm going to be nice. Did you want to bring Nate with you, you know, to the lake house? And she's like, nope, just us girls. Then all of a sudden you see Stuntman Mike come. He buys him the drinks. And he gives it to him, Shiner Brock, right? And then all of a sudden he starts reciting the poem. The woods are lovely, dark and deep. And after he did it, he goes, so how about that lap dance? Then Julia's like, you know, sorry, Stuntman Bert. And he goes, Mike, she broke off that dance earlier. And he's like, no, she didn't. She goes, well, how do you know? He goes, I'm good like that. And you look a little touche. What's touche? You know, wounded slightly. And he basically said that, you know, I know that you didn't break off that dance with anybody because you assumed that there was going to be dudes like pestering you all day because you're a pretty looking lady. Obviously that didn't happen, so how about that lap dance? And so she was just basically brushing it off and like, well, I'll give you a rain check. And he's like, well, I know you're leaving in a few days, so it'll be worthless. Then he pulls out this book and, you know, he says, well, you know how most people say, you're no good in my book, or that's not good in my book. You know, something about the book, right? He pulls it out and he says, I actually have a book, but I'm gonna have to file you under chicken shit. And so she grabs the book, she goes, what if I did it? I can't file you under chicken shit now, could I? And so she's like, all right, well, Stuntman Mike, go get ready for your lap dance. And so she gave him the lap dance. I was like, oh shit. So, I mean, smooth right there, Kurt Russell, smooth, right? So he's sitting in there, and this is one of my favorite scenes of the film. They didn't include this actually in the theatrical version, which sucks, because it was an amazing fucking scene. But they didn't include it in the DVD, right? So all of a sudden, you know, it shows that he's sitting down. She starts playing Down in Mexico by the Coasters. And, whoo, man. You know, it shows that she can move, right? And as an actress, she can really move. And it shows that they do the whole lap dance scene and everything like that.
I'm gonna do it like this. And then I'm gonna do it like this. And then it's her turn. Boom, 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 boom.
And then eventually, you know, it does that whole grindhouse thing where it flicks. And then it goes to where they're leaving outside. He's saying bye to everybody. You know, he goes up to Pam. Pam, you ready? And then they start leaving. And then that's when they start fucking with Pam. They're all like, woo, I think you got Stuntman Mike laid tonight. And then all of a sudden you see Pam come back. This is what I thought was funny. He throws in some dark humor, and she comes back and she goes, look, double fucks, I am not gonna fuck him. And you can hear him in the background, I can hear you. He's old enough to be my I can still hear you. And she was just like, all right, bye, I'm done. She goes up to the car, and his car is parked ass in, and he has a big old like skull and like thunderbolts and shit. And she's like, whoa, that's fucking scary. And he goes, well, yeah, you know, I wanted to impress, and, you know, scary is impressive. And then she asks, you know, after looking at the car, because it's old, she goes, well, is it safe? He goes, it's better than safe. It's death-proof, right? So he tells the whole story, you know, of, you know, how people do stuntman cars and everything. And then he basically says, if I could drive this car at 125 miles an hour on the brick wall and just do it for fun. So, you know, he opens the door. There's no seat, so he puts in the seat. She goes, well, you didn't tell me you didn't have a side seat. He goes, well, you know, cameraman, they sit right here so they can film the crash and everything. And he goes, well, don't worry. At least you know I ain't going to put my hands on your lap and get fresh, right? They get in the car, and then you see the girls, they take off one way, right? He gets in the car, and then he tells Pam, which way are you going? Left or right? She goes, right. And then that's when the real stuntman Mike, this is where all the horror aspect comes out. He's like, well, we're going left, right? And she's like, huh? He goes, you're going to have to start getting scared immediately. And so he pulls to the left. He's pulling out, you know, swear it all over. And she's going all crazy. You fucking son of a bitch. Get me out of the car. I'll fucking rip your head off. And he's, and she's tossing around because there's no seatbelts in it, right? And, you know, finally he does, you know, the whole turnabout. And she flips. Then all of a sudden he starts punching it. And then she tries to play the innocent card where, you know, I love this scene just because the way it was shot was so beautiful. It made her look so innocent. She's all busted up and everything. Look, if you let me out, I swear I'll never tell. I know it's a joke. I know it's a joke. And then, you know, he's still driving, stuntman Mike. And then this is when he tells her one of my favorite lines in the film. Hey, Pam, remember I told you this car was death-proof? Well, that wasn't a lie. This car's 100% death-proof. Only way to get the real benefit of it, though, honey, you really need to be sitting in my seat. Then he fucking slams on the brake. And obviously she's got no seatbelt, so bam, hits her head right in the fucking roll bar, comes back, you know. And the car is stopped. And he's looking down at her, and her face is all fucked up and smashed in. She was dead. And I was like, oh, fuck, like, damn, this turned quick. Like, from the lap dance to somebody dying in the fucking car. And all of a sudden, he pulls down his sun visor, and then he looks at the pictures of the three girls, and he's like, damn. Now I gotta catch me my other girlfriends. And he throws the pictures out. And then all of a sudden it follows the girls. You know, you see that there's Shanna and Arlene. They're sitting in the back seat. Lena Frank, she was the friend that they invited to come over that had the weed. And she's driving because obviously she's not fucked up. And then you have Julia sitting on the passenger seat. She's calling her buddy and said, okay, play this song. You know, I want to hear this song, Hold Tight, from Dave D, Dozy, Mick, and Titch. And everyone's like, who the fuck is that? You know, and then she gives a little history on it. Then the song starts playing. And they're rocking out to it, you know, because they're lit as hell. And all of a sudden you see stuntman Mike. He catches up to him. Pulls to the side. Passes him up. And I guess he goes like a mile down the road. And then he stops his car, flips it around, turns off his light. And then he's just revving the fuck out of his engine. And he fucking line launches himself. Line launch is where, you know, you burn out on the tires. You build them up so you get more traction. And you take off, so that way you're narrowed down on a straight line, right? So he's driving full force head on with them. And they're all like, okay, we want to hear this part of the song louder. So Shanna comes in, turns it all up. Then all of a sudden, at the split second, stuntman Mike turns on the light, right? And all of a sudden, it shows the crash happen 4 different times. And it shows what happens to each girl, right? He hits him so hard, fucking Shanna flies off. You know, she lands on the hard concrete. Then it shows that he crashes again. And it shows Lena Frank, like, her neck, like, snaps from fucking whiplash. Right? Then it shows another one with Julia. She had her legs sticking out of the window. And all of a sudden it hits so hard, her legs just rips off and goes flying into the cement. Right? Then it shows the last one, Arlene, the one who gave him, you know, the lap dance, butterfly, right? It shows that the car goes right through everything, and then, you know, she's looking, and all of a sudden the fucking tire just, like, grinds up her face. And the car goes, you know, flying through and slides and then lands on its side. And I was like, oh shit. Like, that was an intense fucking car scene. And a little tidbit about that was actually really filmed. I mean, they had like dummy bodies and shit in there, obviously, to get the effects. But I mean, they actually filmed it in one fell swoop, right? And they had so many cameras and everything rigged, which I thought was pretty cool, right? And so when they did that, then it shows that now they're in the hospital. And it shows that, you know, stuntman Mike's in the hospital explaining the story and everything. Then all of a sudden you see the doctor from Planet Terror come out, and that's when the sheriff starts talking to her. The sheriff is actually, he's there with another dude, but that's actually his son. And then you find out the doctor is actually his daughter. And you find out more about their story if you watch Planet Terror, right? And so anyways, now the sheriff, he starts talking about everything with his son. And he's like, so what do you think happened? He goes, I think he murdered them girls. And his son's like, the hell? What are you talking about? He goes, well, old stuntman in there, he went to the bar, came out clean as a whistle. And, none of them survived. They looked like a goddamn giant chewed them up and spit them out. And he was just explaining the whole story about everything. And when he explained the whole story about all of it, he was just like, I got a jury that will never convict them because, the chick that was in the car with them, she asked for the fucking ride, And now you start seeing the horror aspect of this. Now it's starting to click. Like, he premeditated everything. And it was like, oh, shit. And then, the sheriff basically said, well, if he ever does that again, he ain't gonna fucking do it in the state of Texas. And it shows that he's in Lebanon, Tennessee. And I was like, oh, fuck. And it says 3 months later. So after he's already healed up and everything, it shows that there's these 3 other girls. They're at this, stop out there. I guess this gas stop, right? He goes up and he pulls up. One of them gets out and starts shopping for shit. And then the other 2, it's Mary Elizabeth Winston and you have Rosie O'Dawson, right? So they're all just, dialoguing and everything like that. And Stuntman Mike, he starts checking them out. Turns off his car. He goes up and he sees Rosie O'Dawson's feet, like, sticking out. And he starts fucking with her feet. And when she starts to wake up, he throws his keys on the ground. He goes, oh, shit, I dropped my keys. He picks up his keys and gets in his car and peels out. And then it shows the chicks are like, what the fuck, right? And they were talking about how they were going to go pick up their friend Zoe. And you find out a little bit more about them, that they all work in the movie industry. It shows the other character, her name is Kim. She was the 3rd girl, right? She gets out and everything. They get in her car and they start taking off. And they start saying that, oh, we're going to go pick up our friend Zoe. And then they start talking about how they're all part of the movie industry, right? And so you find out that Kim, she's a stunt woman, right? Then you find out that Mary Elizabeth Winston's character, her name is Lee. She plays kind of like a stage assistant, things like that. And then Rosie O'Dawson's character, her name is Abernethy. And she plays as a makeup. She works in the makeup industry for Hollywood films. And Zoe, what I thought was cool is that they kept it real. They used her real name, and she's a stunt woman, right? So they go and pick her up at the airport. They're all talking shit, having a good time. And then in the corner, you see Stuntman Mike. He's looking at them, taking pictures. So I thought it was pretty cool. It gave his backstory on how he chooses these girls, right? And so anyways, they go to like this breakfast bar. And they're all having breakfast. They're all talking shit about everything. And in the corner, what I thought was another cool little wink is that you see Stuntman Mike, sitting at the breakfast bar listening into the conversation. And when they said they were going to leave, like 5 minutes before, he knew they were going to leave. So he ate his breakfast and left. And I didn't know that until I saw this film after like 7 times this week. What I thought was pretty cool is that, they all said, okay, well, I've done everything in the movie industry. They start talking about their Hollywood stories and stuff. And then she goes, fuck me running. There's a 1971 Dodge Challenger that I want to drive. And everyone's like, why you want to drive a 1971 Dodge Challenger? She goes, because it's from the movie Vanishing Point. And I was like, oh, shit. Tarantino, man. Genius. He put in Vanishing Point. I love cars, and I love that fucking movie, right? So anyways, they all get in the car. They go out to this area, this farmland, out in the middle of nowhere, right? They meet this guy. And they see the Challenger, they pop open the hood, and it's the original fucking engine, the original big block V8. It was like, ooh. So they, go to the side and they're all like, well, I don't want to buy it, I want to drive it. And they're like, this guy ain't gonna let us drive his fucking Challenger. And so they made up a lie, saying with Abernethy, hey, if you want to come with us, you got to find out a way to, like, let us drive the car alone. So Abernethy basically tells him, like, hey, you can meet my friend Lee over here. She's actually a pornographic actress, right? So they leave Lee there, and, she's just sitting there like, huh? And the dude's like, hi there, little lady. So they were able to get the Challenger, right? They go and take the Challenger, and the reason why they wanted the Challenger is because Zoe wanted to play this game called Shipmast. It's this crazy fucking thing. I don't know if you've ever heard about it. It's where you tie belt loops on the doors, and then you sit on top of the hood. I've known it as a different name, but in the film they call it Shipmast. And so anyways, they get all geared up and everything like that. They set it all up, and so they're driving down the road. Zoe gets out, and so she's starting to hold it. And she's like, go faster, you bitch! So she's driving the white Challenger going hella fast. You see Stuntman Mike sitting there, and he's like, ooh, this is the time, right? And he has binoculars. puts it in his car, and he starts taking out. And what he's rolling in, what I thought was another cool little wink, he's driving a 1969 Dodge Charger. And it's basically reenacting the whole movie of Vanishing Point, you know? I thought it was badass. And so, you know, he comes up right fast to them, and he bumps into them, right? And he keeps bumping into them. And then he fucking loses control, gets on the farmland, comes back up, and he starts punching really fast. Get ready to fly, bitch! You know, and he keeps ramming them and everything. Finally, they both lose control, and they turn over to the side. And then he comes out and he goes, "Woo! Ladies! That was fun!" And he starts laughing, you know, then he's basically like, "Alright, well, adios!" Then Kim comes out and she fucking shoots him in the shoulder. And he's like, "Oh, fuck!" She keeps shooting him because she has a fucking .357. That shit, like, woo, that's a hard-hitting round. So he gets in the car and he takes off. And she goes, "You better run, motherfucker!" And as they're driving before they crash, it doesn't show that, you know, Zoe was on the hood the whole time. And where they stopped at, Zoe flew off and landed into a field, and they thought something happened to her. So she jumps up and she goes, "I'm okay." So, you know, she comes up, she goes, "What happened to the maniac?" And you know, Kim, she basically said, "I shot him and his punk ass took off." She goes, "You want to go get him?" And then they tell Abernethy, we're all like, "Well, darling, you might want to get out of here." She goes, "Fuck that shit. Let's go kill this motherfucker." So that's when they're like, "Oh shit." So they'll gear up and they get in their car and they take off. Then it shows Stuntman Mike. He pulls over to the side and he's all flipping out, you know, because he got shot. So he stops his car and he's opening his fucking, you know, glove box, and there's a bottle of whiskey, and he starts chugging the shit out of it. And he starts crying. "Oh, why? Oh, why? Oh, looking at his fucking arm. And I thought it was funny, you know, just because you never see Kurt Russell play any of these types of roles, right? And so he's flipping out and he's drinking the fucking whiskey and everything. And it's implied that he normally drinks, but he didn't that first kill, right? And so he's drinking the whiskey and everything. He's like, do it. And he's pouring the whiskey all in the wound. And the reason behind that is because if you pour alcohol, it disinfects all that shit. So he's screaming, "Oh, no! Why? Oh, God, no! No, God, no!" And he's trying to psych himself up. He's like, all right, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? And he starts taking a swig. Then all of a sudden he sees a Challenger come up. And he spits it on the fucking windshield. And he gets hit. Zoe jumps out of the Challenger and starts beating the shit out of him with a fucking, you know, pole. And then she's like, what do you think about that, motherfucker? Huh? You know, he starts the car and takes off. Zoe jumps in the Challenger, and now the Challenger is chasing the Charger, which is a cool little twist if you've seen Vanishing Point, right? So they chase up with him and everything, and then he's telling them, "I'm sorry, I was only playing around, I'm sorry." And they're like, "We're not playing with you," and they keep smashing him into the corner. What I thought was another cool little wink is that there's like a drive-in sign. They're like, "Watch out for the sign," then he goes, "Oh, fuck, ah!" Runs through the sign, but the sign was pretty cool because it had Scary Movie 4 and Wolf Creek. And with the whole meaning behind the Wolf Creek, because it's not owned by Dimension Films, which is the company that produced this film, Wolf Creek was a wink because Quentin Tarantino loved that fucking film. And he wanted the main lead actor of Wolf Creek to play Stuntman Mike. Obviously that didn't work out, but I mean, Kurt Russell was just as fucking great, right? So he crashes through the sign and everything. They're still chasing after him. He slams on his brake. They go on the other side. And then, you know, he thinks he loses him because he's like, "Yeah! Fuck, it's about time! Fuck!" And he starts laying low and he starts cruising. The Challenger is all the way up on this hill just punching him. And then it comes to an angle where, you know, it does like the pit hit. You know, pit is where you hit the corner part of the car so it flips, right? So they're coming at full speed. He's cruising. Boom! And then the fucking Charger just flips all over. And they're okay, the ones in the Challenger. So they pull over to the side and they come out and they see that the Charger's all fucked up. And then Stuntman Mike's screaming, "Oh, no! Oh, God! Help!" And he's like, no, my arm's broken! Ah! They snapped it back in place. They pull him out. And all these chicks, they beat the fuck out of him. They punched him about 37 times. I counted every single punch, right? And then finally Zoe kicks him in the face and he goes down to the ground. And in Tarantino fashion, it says, "The end," while they're all jumping up. Yeah! But it wasn't the end yet, right? And all of a sudden, they tell Abernethy, they said, "Okay, finish him off." And so she lifts up her leg and whack right on his face and breaks his fucking neck. End of the film, which I thought was fucking amazing. It's Tarantino, guys. But then what's even more cool is that at the end where you see, you know, the credits, and it starts playing that song "Chick Habit" by April March, you see all these, you know, old school pictures of all these young girls, young women. And it flashes between the beat, dun, 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 dun. And the vibe that I got off of it is that he's been doing this for a long time, and those are all the victims of all the girls that he went after and they didn't survive. Which I thought was a cool way. They never explained it, but that's the vibe I got. I mean, if you guys got that vibe, let me know in the comments below. But I mean, you know, with Death Proof, it was a fucking amazing film. It was, you know, a lot of dialogue because it's Tarantino, but you had the action, you had the build-up. And a lot of people will make the argument about this, that, you know, he spent a lot of time in the first half of the film and the second half just kind of, you know, and I could see where a lot of people were talking about that, you know, but I mean, if you look at it, this film is close to almost 2 hours by a standalone film, you know, if you see it uncut. And for 2 hours, that's not that bad. Because, I mean, it did the whole character development. You're supposed to build up the characters of what's happening in the story. Then you meet up about, you know, Kurt Russell's character, Stuntman Mike. And then you find out, you know, what he does and how he goes after these women. And it's a typical slasher film. The thing that makes it so fresh and so unique, it didn't have to be dark to be a slasher film. It didn't have to be, you know, like Jason Voorhees, where he keeps coming back from the grave to come after you. It didn't have to be dark where he had to go and, you know, brutally murder and rape all of these girls and everything like that, you know? It was different. It was a fresh take. And I love the aspect and the view that he was doing to this film. But, you know, the only thing that trips me out is that Tarantino has gone on record and said this was his least favorite film. For reasons unknown, I don't know why, maybe it got panned by the critics, but a lot of the critics, you know, looking at the reviews, they all love this film. It was a great film. You know, it was something needed for its time, and it's truly underrated. I mean, if you go back and watch this film, you'll know that it's classic Tarantino. It really is, you know? But this film is, I guess, gets the least amount of credit to his work. And, you know, Tarantino admitted that. But the idea of Death Proof, I love so much because, you know, Tarantino, he got the idea from it, not only because of the stuntman and stuff like that, but he also got the idea because he was hanging out with Sean Penn. And Sean Penn was kind of showing him his new car or whatever, and Tarantino made the comment of like, oh, I want to buy a Volvo because they're the safest cars, you never die in it. And Sean Penn had joked with him and said, well, you know what? You could just go and buy any car, put 15 grand in, and you got a car that's death proof. And that name just stuck with Tarantino, and I thought it was amazing, you know, because Tarantino's like, oh shit, death proof, stuntman, death proof. I mean, you know, it fits in, right? It's just pretty cool how he came up with the idea and the concept of it. What I thought was another interesting thing that Tarantino had done in this film is that, you know, he's so old school that when he filmed this and when he was editing it, he basically had scratched up the whole film. He physically scratched the film instead of adding in all, you know, the green screen effects and, you know, all the CGI effects to make it look like it's old. No. That's all classic Tarantino who just, you know, physically scratched it. And it was pretty cool how he did that, you know, in the Texas Chili Parlor scene where they show the jukebox. The jukebox is actually Tarantino's jukebox. And I thought it was really cool because, I mean, that's his actual record collection that he brought onto the set to play the actual music. Some of that music was actually really hard to find. But I thought what was really cool is that jukebox, I think he used it in Pulp Fiction, and I think he's used it in another one of his films. But it's pretty cool because it shows like the list like going through and it's all handwritten by him. I mean, you can see songs that he's done in there for Pulp Fiction, you know? You can see songs that he's done in there for other films. And I'm just like, holy shit, like, he really does like this music. It's a pretty interesting take on it. If you really sit back and think about it, like, holy shit, he's got some good taste in music. But he really made Death Proof stand out. But what's cool about this film, what Tarantino had done, was that he wanted to give his thanks and appreciation to the people behind the camera, you know, like the stuntman. So obviously he gave, you know, Zoe her starring role, Zoe Bell, but he also included one of the best stunt guys out there. His name is Buddy Joe Hooker. And Buddy Joe Hooker, he's known as the #1 top guy for like all your car chase stunt scenes and stuff like that. And he does amazing work. Obviously, if you've seen, you know, Fast and the Furious and you see all those crazy stunt driving scenes and stuff like that, 9 times out of 10, that was probably him. You know, and it was pretty cool because they did like a feature on the DVD behind the scenes of how they did all this and how Buddy Joe Hooker was, you know, talking about like all the different stunts that he's done. And it's amazing, you know, it's pretty cool that Tarantino, you know, he didn't forget about the people behind the scenes and said, okay, this movie's for them and we're going to make a slasher take on it, you know? But, you know, that's what stands out so much in this film. You know, it's so iconic. It's one of those films that I see that a lot of people really didn't care for when it came out, when it was first released back in 2007. But now it's starting to get its notoriety on it, you know? Personally, for me, I've always loved that film. I hadn't seen it in a long time, you know, because I've been trying to keep up with all the other horror films. but the fact that Tarantino did a slasher horror film, and, you know, it's genre bending almost, you know? But it's very different, very unique, very fresh. If you've never seen Death Proof, go check it out right now. I'm pretty sure it's on Prime. Every now and then I see it pop up on Netflix and Hulu and all that stuff. And even then, I can tell you right now, if you find the DVD from 2007, you never know, you might find it as a $5 horror find, right? But, you know, if you've seen that film, let me know in the comments below what you guys thought of it. If you thought it was amazing, if it's underrated, if it's one of Tarantino's best films. I want to hear all your guys' thoughts. And thank you guys for all tuning in, and I'll catch y'all next time, as always.